This is Sphinx Radio, exploring the enigmas of the ages and the puzzles of the present, with your host, William H. Kennedy. Kurt Saxon, welcome back to Sphinx Radio.
Thank you.
Now, Kurt, as the founder of survivalism and as someone who monitors the mainstream media, what do you see is going to happen in the near future in the United States?
Well, the system is crumbling, and by the year 2012, there will hardly be a United States left.
So just in the next couple of years, you think it will be like a failed state, so to speak?
Totally.
And what do you think people should start doing now in 2009 to start preparing for this collapse?
Well, they should buy my DVD library on cottage industry, crafts, trades, home business, every way that their great-grandparents made a living. You know, a couple hundred years ago, the average family had its own workshop, and they produced something to sell or trade. It's going to have to be that way again, because the people who have nothing to do, nothing to sell or trade, are going to be in bad shape. I mean, talk about joblessness. There will be a time when there are no jobs.
That's
coming apart even now.
Oh, yeah, as we see, what do you think about the financial crisis in the international banking industry, which has caused this great meltdown? Do you think there'll be any help?
No. There'll be a liability, because it'll give people hope that there's somebody out there, and there won't be anybody out there. People would just wake up to the fact that they are alone, and there's no help for them. If they can't help for themselves, they're doomed.
And just to let people know, they can buy your Super Survival series at kurtsaxon.com, 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 and they can also get it at survivalplus.com, survivalplus.com. Now, Kurt, what do you think about people who are living in the big cities? Do you think big cities are safe places to be?
Well, they're not safe now. They certainly won't be safe when the system collapses.
Right, they're pretty dangerous at the moment as we speak as it is. So you think people should consider relocating to more rural areas?
Oh, yes. They'll have to if they want to live. In fact, that's what their ancestors did in Europe. They came to the United States, which was more rural, and they built up their own little things.
Right, Kurt. Now, you see a lot of stuff on the internet about survival-type things, like you can buy these survival capsule things you can stay in. It's kind of like an astronaut's space pod. What do you think of things of that nature?
Well, they're okay as long as they last, and as long as the neighbors don't take them. But if you're setting up a situation where you got to point guns at your neighbor, you might as well pack it in.
It doesn't really matter what you have then. And what do you also think? You see all these like survival meals. You can buy like a year's supply of food and such. What do you think about people stocking up on these prepackaged meals?
Well, they're all right as long as they last, but they won't last long. And besides, if your neighbor knows that you've got them, then your neighbor is going to take them if he can, if he's got a wife and kids. Because his wife and kids is more important than you.
So if you do have a stock of food, don't advertise it to your friends and neighbors. Like don't be known as a survivalist guy who has a cellar full of food and fresh water in your area. Because if that knowledge is out there, hungry people, that's the first place they're going to come looking. Would you agree?
Well, yes. What you ought to do is get on the search engines and look up hand grain grinders, and then go to your seed and feed store and buy 50 pounds of rye, 50 pounds of hard red winter wheat, and 50 pounds of corn, and you grind that all up and mix it, and you make cornbread and pancakes out of that, and that's the most nutritious food you can buy, and it would keep you alive. And also, what you want to do is to share with your neighbors, or share the knowledge. Get your neighbors to come into your home and watch the DVDs, and everybody come up with his own cottage industry. You know, a lot of people wondered how the Japanese could hang on as long as they did during the Second World War. But just about every Japanese household had its own little manufacturing setup. They would manufacture parts for planes and tanks and guns, and that's what kept the country going.
So it was
and that's what people need.
So it was these little household cottage industry type things where people got particular skills. Now, just to let people know, as part of this DVD package they can get at kurtsaxon.com, there's a lot of really great ideas on cottage industries and things that you can set up for yourself. Yeah. You know, there's even a thing where you can repair other people's objects, other people's tools, you know, how to fix a ladder. It even has plans on how to make your own miniature gas plant. All sorts of really, really fascinating and worthwhile thing. A whole section on herbal medicines and remedies. And there's even a plan. A friend of mine did this. This is why I bring this up. There's plans in your Survivor Volume 4 about how to make dollhouses. And dollhouses, so long as there are little girls out there, dollhouses will always be very popular, especially very well-crafted, handmade dollhouses. And with the...
Well, this DVD collection has everything we've ever published. And one of the things you just touched on is Granddad's Wonderful Book of Toys. Now, why should the Chinese make American toys, which aren't safe? Why couldn't anybody set up his own toy shop and make toys to sell at trade fairs and to put in consignment in stores? And in this, if you got a set of these DVDs, you'll never have to buy another gift. You'll never have to buy another toy for your kids because you've got everything right there.
All right, and that's a big thing. And what I always point out to people is that over 1 million people make their living selling things off Google, and you can do a combined thing where you go to flea markets and trade fairs, and you can also set yourself up a little computer business as well, and you can generate, you know, someone in China might want to buy a handcrafted dollhouse from the United States if it's made with quality. And you also have, I should say, a lot of great information on basic survivalist in your DVD collection, which people can get at kurtsaxon.com. There's even an article here on how to raise goats and how you can, you know, produce your own goat milk and goat cheese. There's how to make cornmeal. Really some very basic and worthwhile things, which, you know, how to do sprouts. You know, make your own sprouts at home. And part of this DVD series that I like the best about it is you can read about it, but there's also a lot of videos of you showing people how to actually use different sorts of grinders and to make your own corn. And there's also a lot of great cooking recipes, you know, some very basic, helpful foods that you show people how to cook, like nachos and those corn pancakes you mentioned earlier. All sorts of really instructive information in this, which you can get at KurtSaxon.com. Now, Kurt...
well, basically, it teaches you how to do everything your great-grandparents did on a day-to-day basis to stay alive.
Right, and remember, back 100 years ago, even in the 1920s, not even 100 years ago, people had to do for themselves. There was no Walmart down the street. There was no Kmart where you could get these pre-made things. Everybody literally had to pitch in and do everything. And these skills were all written down and collected in various books like Popular Mechanics. And you've collected a lot of this information, which is on the DVD series. So I should point out that you're getting both video and written instructions in these DVDs, which you can get at KurtSaxon.com. Now, Kurt, do you think that the federal government, in case of like a major disaster, will be able to provide for the 300 million people in this country?
Well, they're not able to provide for people now. 1 out of 8 persons in America doesn't have quite enough to eat. Most people don't know that.
Oh, it's quite amazing. In fact, on an international scale, they've just concluded that there are 1 billion people on this planet who go to bed hungry every night, who haven't had enough to eat. So we really that's the statistic at the moment. It's probably more than that. We're approaching 7 billion people. So people are going to have to learn basic skills of growing food, raising livestock, making their own crafts, learning how to generate their own power. Now, one of my favorite things is you can really get off the grid. There's all sorts of information on how to create your own power sources, from making your own windmills to solar energy power that you can use yourself to create a steam engine. This is not new technology. People were using solar power 100 years ago to make steam and such. So you can actually set yourself up to survive very well. Now, Kurt, let me ask you, what do you think people should do as far as dealing with the government? Is it worth, should you just try and get what you can from the government, or is it worth bothering with them at all if things collapse?
Well, the government likes very much people that don't depend on the government. If you can be self-sufficient, then the government likes you.
Right, they're not going to bother you at all. You're just one less person they have to worry about or write a check to or give food to. So self-sufficiency, they won't bother you, and you really don't have to bother them. And everyone's happy in this deal, because you got to figure they got 300 million people to worry about. One less person is fine by them that they don't have to deal with. And there again, people really should go to KurtSaxon.com, and at least take a look at. There's a lot of free material there, but I strongly urge people to purchase the Super Survival DVD collection. And even if you watch it 2 or 3 times, you'll gain, just passively sitting there and watching it, you'll gain a ton of information from these videos and films that you made on all varieties of personal survival, from cooking and creating your own tire garden to all sorts of things, producing your own food and cooking your own food. Now, Kurt, what do you think of Barack Obama and this whole big medical plan he has? Now, I should point out that there's a lot of herbal information about natural remedies in your book, but what do you think about this big plan for healthcare? Do you think it will work?
No, because a basic idea is going to come into play. 3 words: let them die.
Really? So
you can't do anything else. You simply have to let them die. That's going to cause deaths of impoverished people on a very broad scale. The government can't breathe for you.
Right, it's quite amazing, and I really say this, I'm harping on the government a bit, Kurt, because right now our current president, Barack Hussein Obama, is making some very big promises and some very high expectations, and he's claiming to be able to take care of everyone, and it's just not feasible. They couldn't take care of everyone when this was the richest and most powerful country on earth, and now with this major decline, they really can't do it either. Now, what do you think of the current international situation? Do you think other countries are going to help people in the United States?
No, because the other countries can't help their own people. Look, there's a basic principle, Bill. Whenever an organism outbreeds the carrying capacity of its environment and its sources of supply, it faces the die-off of its surplus population. And that's starting to happen all over the world.
Right,
it will accelerate.
Right, there was a philosopher named Thomas Malthus who promoted that idea, and whatever your opinions are, he was absolutely right. As populations overgrow, nature, by its own reckoning, will start to cull down major segments of any population, be it animal or human. Now, as individuals, what we want to be is we want to be the people who survive this form of, I guess it's really a form of natural selection, if you want to look at it that way. The people who are on the top of the economic pyramid really want a lot of people to die anyway, and as individuals, we just don't want to be the people who perish. Would you agree?
Well, there's really nothing you can do about it because it's going to happen. All you can do is prepare to save yourself and your loved ones and help your neighbors to survive.
As best you can, right. That's a big thing. Well, we're about out of time now, Kurt. Would you like to make any final comments for this session?
Well, I would say that this material that I have, it's not only useful, but it's very interesting. It's fascinating, especially if you've got teenagers. You want to keep the kids out of trouble, put them on, get a set of the DVDs and let them go to town on your computer, and it'll keep them out of trouble and give them something to do. In fact, your own teenagers might be the reason you survive.
All right, and just consider there's no jobs for all these teenagers this summer, and school's letting out in a couple weeks. So there's even a great fear of urban unrest from teenagers, believe it or not. So that's actually a very constructive idea. Well, Kurt, we're out of time. Thank you for being on Sphinx Radio, and we'll continue this survivalist series. We'll do another show in a couple of weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.